You're listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves.
Welcome to show number 277. Today is Monday, September 1st, 2014, and my name is Steve. Hope everyone had a great Labor Day weekend. I am joined by both Hamilton and Curtis, and guys, let's get to it. So in tonight's show, we'll talk about Frank Wren's youth movement, the coming free agency for Justin and Heyward, the future of Goslin and LaStella, and the return of the postseason hope meter. But first, guys, it was a 4-2 week. Well, unless you care to count today and the thoroughly depressing no-hitter at the hands of the Phillies.
Yeah, those can really change the tone of a week.
But, you know, even with the no-hitter, this week was really characterized by what we'd expect from this team this year. Don't you think? Brilliant starting pitching, like Minor and Wood, unbelievable. Like Wood just gets better and better, and Minor's resurgence just continues to amaze me.
Are you willing to say he's back, Stevie?
I'm willing to say he's back. Willing to say he's back. And not just in his mind, Hammy. And, so great pitching and then inconsistent offense. And yet, it's Monday night. We're still 1.5 games out of the second wildcard spot. You've got the team in front of us in Milwaukee that's 2-8 in their last 10. Pittsburgh's hanging around just 2 games back. So really this is about us and Pittsburgh, and Milwaukee. Assume San Francisco and St. Louis will sort of come and go. St. Louis is now atop the Central, so San Fran is in the lead in the wild card. But while all this is happening, there's been a fair amount of stories in the media about what the Braves should do in the offseason to reshape the team. And, I'm of the mind that if this team makes the postseason, it is going to skew all of that. The reshaping that would occur will really be minimized. So if you guys, will take that theory forward, if you could have one or the other, a postseason appearance, and what I mean by that is getting past the play-in game and the wild card. So a real series versus a fairly significant moves this offseason, which would you choose, Hammy?
And I would say that they wouldn't even have to make the postseason, and there still could be minimal reshaping, right? They could come close, and I think it could still be an eventuality. But I would say we talked about this a lot. This is not a championship team. The Braves are right near the top tier, but they're not there yet. And the minimal reshaping is not going to change that. Doing nothing in the offseason, we are not going to be contending for a World Series champion, and we've said it a lot. So I think you have to make – I'll start with you have to make a significant move this offseason. I think it's got to be offensive. We need an all-star batter, and not an all-star like Ugla who made it 1 or 2 years. We need a serious all-star at the core of our lineup to make this team to the next level. And otherwise, we're going to be right here, lucky to make the playoffs and going nowhere in the playoffs.
See, it's funny, Hammy. I mean, my position is if I had to choose, I would choose the offseason makeover too. But we've got the all-star hitters. It's the guys around them that I think we need. It's the true leadoff hitter. It's the contact hitters. It's the guys that will put the ball in play. It's the low strikeout guys. We've got Justin and Heyward and Freddie. We've got those all-star bats. We need players around it, in my mind. Curtis, where are you on this?
I'm for the overhaul. I don't think that this team, as Hamilton mentioned, has the capacity right now to really challenge for a championship. And I think you're right. I think that the problem with the Braves right now is it's too much of the same. And that might be the offensive approach that they take under this leadership with Walker and whatnot. He kind of outlined what he hopes to do, which is, get guys on base whichever way it might be, high OBP, and then wait around for 3-run homers. And so you have everyone run from your leadoff guy to your 8th place guy swinging out of their shoes. I mean, Simmons can't even keep himself upright, it seems like. I mean, he swings so hard that he takes 12 steps into the on-deck circle every time he swings. And so you're right. You need guys. You need some diversity in this lineup. You need guys that aren't all. And I mean, I know that people are, oh, well, they're all different. Yeah, I understand that. But I mean, you're right. You need more types of hitters in this lineup. It's too much all or nothing in this lineup. And I mean, it just shows. It shows what. With August, you just went 12-12, and you had a 3 ERA, which was the second best ERA in the National League. And all you could do was manage to go 500. You just went 3 games where you scored 1 run. So, I mean, how much worse? Literally, how much worse can it get? So, I'm for the overhaul, and I also think you need another starting pitcher. I know that sounds crazy, given what we've had, but you look at what we have to face, and we're missing guys in the National League East with Hernandez and Harvey out. But come next year, the pitching staffs that the Braves are going to have to face it's just overwhelming. So I think they need another piece in that starting rotation. You can't rely on Aaron Harang and guys like that.
Well, and Harang won't be here for sure.
Well, guys like him.
Guys like him, yeah.
And it is odd that, not counting today, which I know you can't just forget today happened, although I know we all wish we could. I mean, we're on a pretty good stretch, right? And we might make the postseason, and a lot of our fans argue with us, guys, the postseason hasn't even happened yet, and even if we make it, isn't a success. And we don't think it is. I think it's strange. A bit. I don't know. How do you defend that?
Well, if we got hot and burned through the playoffs and got to the World Series, it would be a success. None of us would bet $1 on that. Right. Is the thing. Watching this team day in and day out this year, there is no reason in my mind to believe that this team going up against the best pitchers in the National League will really have any success over the course of a 5 or 7 game series.
Well, you just saw it. You just saw 3 games against ace-level pitching. And
it's
look
true.
at the results. 1 run and a no-hitter. So, I mean, this is not us creating this out of thin air. This is not us dumping on the Braves. This is us looking at reality in the face and what this team is. And it's a team that offensively it's challenged. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And I think that something has to be done to shake up things to get something going in the right direction.
And I get that the offense is essentially the same as it was last year. And the offense was quite successful last year, and 96 wins and getting into the first round. But isn't it too big a gamble to waste such good pitching to believe that, we don't have to do much and the offense is just going to rediscover itself next year? That, to me, is the biggest problem. And so guys, let's talk about some of the trade rumors. I don't know about rumors, but sort of scenarios that were raised this week across a number of publications. So first, and this is from DOB. DOB had a blog this week saying that BJ being gone before spring training next year is essentially a done deal, which I frankly am loath to believe is really true.
Yeah.
But, he was DOB was talking about like packaging up BJ plus Minor, BJ plus a good pitcher. So let's throw Wood in there as a possibility so that they don't then have to take on a bunch of his salary as well. But in my mind, really, whatever you have to do, you have to get rid of BJ. You just have to. There's no way this team can go into next year with BJ on the roster. It would be, obviously he can't be a starter, and it would be a wasted bench spot. Forget the money. It would just be a wasted bench spot to have BJ on the team. And to me, the other option, one of the big ones was Gaddis. That Gaddis's trade value will never be as high. He's obviously built for the American League and some DH and catching. And I think you do that too. You've got Betancourt. You could turn Gaddis into a lot. And frankly, I would take any chance you can to get rid of Chris Johnson. He's got 3 more years. His his extension is, I don't know, in the, it's like 23 or 24 million. So he's pretty, he's pretty, his salary is pretty reasonable. But those are some great spaces to open up to get those glue guys in here to get on base and to make contact and to be support around the big sticks in the lineup. What do you guys think?
Curtis, you go first.
Yes, I'm for all of it. I think that the problem that the Braves have had, and at times it's been a problem that has obviously played out for them in the positive, that they are very conservative. They like to keep guys in house. They're loyal to their players, and I think that they've constructed the team that they want on the field, and so why would they be willing to trade pieces? And
there is no way that Wren and Sherholtz are sitting around this year going, "We've done a good job with the
maybe not. But you have to get rid of BJ. I think he just went 115 in August or something like that. I mean, he is now, dare I say, worse than Ugla. Noticeably worse than Ugla. And the reason is because he continues to get played. And Ugla at some point obviously just vanished. I mean, he never got played again. BJ continues to show up in the lineup. So he, therefore, is worse than Ugla. And if it means that you trade Mike Minor, obviously that's a big piece to give up, especially given his recent resurgence. But,
But to get rid of BJ and free up some salary to do something else in that position, you've got to do it.
And again, you would certainly have to go out and get another pitcher. And Gaddis, I think that absolutely, I hate it. And trying to explain to my son that they potentially could be trading Jason Heyward and Gaddis and all these people in the in the offseason is not the easiest thing in the world to do. But Gaddis is 28 years old on top of everything else. I mean, it's not like he can be a National League catcher in Atlanta for a very much longer period of time. He will wear out. We saw it happen with Brian McCann, how brilliant Brian McCann was, and it just finally took its toll on him. Yeah. And so now you have to take the time. I will throw into this, and I will let Hamilton answer, but I want you also guys to answer this question that I have. Do you trust Wren to make these moves? Because these moves could potentially reset your team and your farm system, which is ranked number 26, one of the worst farm systems in Major League Baseball, as I mentioned. Do you trust him to be the guy to pull the trigger and to get back what you have to get back in return for all this that you're giving away?
Ham, you want to take that?
I mean, it's built on the premise, would he ever be this sort of combustible or whatever and blow everything up, which I am highly skeptical that he would be. But I don't know. I think it's a coin flip on Wren. We've seen him do well and we've seen him do poorly. And I really think there's nothing that make me lean any more than who knows if he could pull it off when if it was Gaddis. And I agree with everything you said. I trade Gaddis first, just get everything back, and that's the most painful one. Trade Chris Johnson, sure. I don't think you get much more of the back than Chris Johnson in another person's body.
He's basically he's a 0.5 WAR this year.
Yeah.
Get rid of Chris Johnson.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. It hurts me to give up Minor to get rid of BJ. But I get it. We definitely need BJ gone. But I don't think, back to Kurt's question, it's more on McGurk and Wren. That's not how they operate. They're not willing to take a huge dive and blow up this team. So they're not going to take a bunch of risks and can do a complete overhaul. I don't have faith in them all the way down, bottom through, that they're going to do that type of move. I think they're going to try to do incremental things. We were right there at the end last year. If we could sort of offset this or that, get BJ just, trusting his hands more. that kind of nonsense. I don't trust them to do it. I love the ideas of it, and I would do everything you guys said. I do not think it will happen.
So, Kurt, I'll actually answer your question and say no, I don't trust Wren. He can't sign free agents. He's brilliant building a bullpen and picking up guys off the scrap heap. But the big moves, more than not, he doesn't do them well.
Yeah, I mean, this would be not quite Tasharian type of levels, but if you commit to going through this type of stuff, you have to fundamentally change the landscape of what you have available to you as a team and as the future of this team. And that's so important that you don't just get back and you don't miss on guys and all that kind of stuff. If you're going to make these moves and get rid of this level of player that you have in house, you have to hit home runs with a lot of that stuff.
Look, we're not the Red Sox. We don't have the Red Sox budget, obviously, but the Red Sox have blown their team up twice now in 4 years? I mean, there was the big trade with the Dodgers a few years ago. There's what they did this trade deadline. That is a team looking to the future and seeing how things are going to play out and taking control of their destinies. This team, this front office needs to take control of this team's destiny because the writing on the wall is kind of ugly.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. It's just never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
All right, guys, so let's
I mean, that's what you agree. I mean, because you're right. I didn't answer Kurt's question, but do you think, whether Wren is good at it or not, do you think that the Braves would ever do this kind of overhaul, Steve, in the offseason? Maybe sign one big all-star, one big free agent.
I believe that BJ and Gaddis will be gone before the start of next year. Beyond that, I don't think much will happen. But I do think those two things will happen.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, sort of continuing along this vein, there was a story in the AJC earlier this week about the inconsistent offense, of course, and there was an interesting quote from Greg Walker regarding the youth of the team, which is basically the youngest in the league. The quote is, "Somebody's going to coach these guys when they're 28 years old, and it's going to be easier. It's fun now, a lot of fun. I enjoy the guys, I enjoy the job, but it's a lot of our players are young, another set of issues." So, guys, obviously we've spoken a lot about BJ and Freddie, and we started down this road. But do you blame Wren for where we are now? Forget about if he can fix it. We had a team last year that was fourth in runs, first in homers. Wren constructed that team. It won 96. It won 96 games. But so is he to blame for this year?
This is Kurt. I think that I do place a good bit of that blame on him. And even last year, frankly, going into the playoffs, this kind of offensive approach, which I don't like this offensive approach. I guess I can't say that enough. I'm sorry, I'm beating a dead horse. But going into the playoffs, you did not feel secure. I assume I'm speaking for you guys too, especially going into the LA series, did not feel super confident that this team and specifically this offense was going to propel us through that series. I don't think that you go into postseasons with offenses that are reliant on home runs and end up very successful because you just don't hit a lot of home runs in the postseason when you're facing top level pitching every single night. And I mean, one of the attributes of top level pitchers is they don't give up a lot of home runs. So it's flawed. And I understand if that's the construct that they wanted as a coaching staff. And so they're offering that to Wren and he's shaping it to their will. But I'm hoping that, him being the higher up, that he is, manipulating these things for his sight and his opinions too. And so it's just, it's such a razor thin thing. And we saw it happen this year that it has to run perfectly for this offense to be successful. And when it doesn't, it's terrible. And so they're down in OBP this year. They're down in home runs this year. And their offense is down at the bottom of the National League.
And we saw it run beautifully for whatever those 3 or 4 weeks were when they moved Heyward to the 1 last year up until he got his face smashed in. Mm-hmm. If that team had gotten into the playoffs, I was going to feel pretty good about it.
Sure.
But really, it's been, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I don't remember how long it was, of almost 2 years now. The BJ signing was ridiculous from day one. The UGLA extension was ridiculous. Wren is behind both of those things.
And he just extended Chris Johnson, too.
Yeah, which I thought was silly, and said that the day he did it. And there's the lack of experience in the clubhouse. You have got to know.
That's it.
You have got to know your clubhouse. You have got to know your manager, who came out, right? We talked about this a month ago, came out and said, yeah, there's no clubhouse leader, and no, I'm not doing anything different about it. You, as GM, you've got to know all of your personnel, and you have got to address those gaps. You've got to sign that David Ross or that Eric Hinsky so that there is some leadership in the clubhouse. So God forbid you have a season like we have. There's someone to throw some tables over and, keep the focus where it needs to be. This team gets so rudderless at times, and Freddie ain't grabbing the rudder.
No. I mean, I think to defend Wren, because I agree, but I think maybe to a lesser degree. He did have whatever money he might have had at the beginning of the season to play around and alter things, got eaten up with Santana because of the injuries to the starting pitching. Right?
And it was a great move. It
was a great move, but that doesn't let him off the hook because he hasn't made perfect moves that put him in that position or helped him get out of it. I think every year you look at your team and you say, do I invest 100% of my energy and resources into this year or into the long term? And everybody's trying to find that balance or find that ability where you're always sort of riding a wave, right, of a look towards the future as well as how you're performing that year. And, I think this past offseason, because of our past success, it was obvious that Wren put more of his eggs in the long-term basket. So, I think he had to have known that this was a potential outcome of this. I think this was a risk he was willing to take maybe for the long term. But I think he could have been better to put himself in a better position coming into this offseason. And I still don't trust him much beyond that. But I think, if anything, it's because he's looking long-term here. And I still think a lot of blame's got to go on Freddie. And a lot of blame on Walker. I hate this. Well, it's not my fault. And I know they're not going to say that, but like Freddie, it goes back to when we blew that 10-game lead or whatever going into the final season and lost on the last day 2 years ago. And Freddie never once said it was our fault. We did this wrong. We did that wrong. And Walker is the same way. He's Teflon. It's not my fault. It's always somebody else's fault. It's the fact that they're young. That's frustrating.
Well, but to me, that's a coded message to say, I'm coaching my butt off over here, and these young guys are not taking what I'm giving them. They're not doing it. To me, really, I lay little to no blame on the hitting coaches. The players have got to perform.
Yeah.
And everything we've read and everything we've seen, and these are smart baseball guys, and the players just aren't taking the advice they're getting. I'm not on the hitting coaches. Freddie, look, we can talk all day about Freddie's not a good in-game manager, and I think few people would disagree.
But that goes back to sorry, Ham. That goes back to the leadership thing you're talking about, Steve. That they won't listen because there's no one there to make them listen. I tweeted when Prado got picked up by the Yankees about, oh man, it would have been so awesome to have Prado back. Not just to have Prado back as a player, but to have him back as a clubhouse presence, Yeah. I mean, just that whole package that you get with a guy like Martin Prado and what he could bring to this team, plus maybe benching Chris Johnson. But, it's just the void there is overwhelming.
So Saturday night we saw Heyward. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Heyward had words with BJ coming off the field after BJ was sort of lackadaisical on a single where the guy on first went to third. And Heyward was having words with him and wouldn't walk into the dugout until BJ was far down the row. And he was clearly unhappy. And which was awesome, right? But of course, and this is no one's fault. I mean, I understand why Heyward wasn't signed to an extension on both sides of it, but Heyward's kind of a lame duck. Heyward, it's going to be a little hard for Heyward to truly be a leader in the clubhouse, but that was awesome to see that night.
Indeed.
All right, guys, a couple of quick announcements. So first, all of our new shows will also be available on our new YouTube channel, which you can find by searching Atlanta Baseball Talk out on YouTube. And when you find it, please subscribe. It's a great way to ensure that you don't miss any shows. We also have a new Facebook fan page. So go out there and like us. It's at facebook.com/Atlanta Baseball Talk. All right, guys, let's move on to fair or foul, where I throw something out there. You agree with it fair or disagree with it foul. So, Hammy, you'd rather keep Justin over Heyward long term?
This is a tough one. I think that obviously we need someone like Justin to be our bopper, heat check guy, truly the one person on our team who can put the offense on his back and carry the team on his back and carry them through a stretch, like, say, August, for instance. But if we didn't have Justin and got someone back who was even comparable to what he had, 75% of what he had in terms of offensive contribution, I think Heyward is much more valuable to the team overall. He's young. His ceiling is higher. I think that across fielding and just all the dimensions of the game, he will ultimately be more valuable to us. Not regardless of what Justin does for another team, Heyward will provide more value to us as a player. And I think, Justin's might be more easily replaced than Heyward in terms of skill replacement. So it's close, but I'd rather keep Heyward, whatever that is, fair or foul.
Curtis, how about you?
Yeah, Heyward with me too, and really just for just the dimensions, the defense, the base running, they've kind of finally cut him loose in the last couple of days.
And stolen bases today, right? I didn't have 3 stolen bases today.
Yeah. And Justin, obviously, this is an MVP caliber season for Justin. I was kind of looking back because you kind of think that, he has a hot month here and he has a hot month there and then he's down. But really, he's only had one bad month this year. So he's having an amazing season. And it's obviously pie in the sky, but you would hope that there would be some miracle where they could sign both of these guys. But I guess they're both going to be looking $18-19 million, somewhere in that range.
Who do you think gets more? Who do you think gets more overall value of a contract, Justin or Heyward?
Heyward.
Yeah, I'd say Heyward too, just because
of the length.
Well, and I think people still think that he is untapped yet. I think Justin is who Justin is now and who he will be, even though he's only 25 or something years old. But I think that Heyward, there's still the belief that, he's going to be a 300 hitter, that he's going to hit a lot more home runs and he's going to steal a lot more bases. And maybe once he's out of the confines of Atlanta, that he'll be able to do all those things. And so I think, and of course with this defense, I think that he's the guy that will get more money out of it.
Yeah, he's just a better overall player. He just is. He's a premier outfielder. Justin is not. He's a great base runner. Justin, Heyward has a combined 24.5 WAR in 5 seasons compared to 20.8 in 8 seasons for Justin. To me, Heyward's going to get more money and be more sought after. And so, obviously, you can guess my answer. I would keep Heyward as well. All right, so guys, in that same vein, Curtis, you're more excited about Gosselin in the coming years than LaStella. Fair or foul?
I would say fair, just because of his diversity. He can play more positions, and I just think that alone. And he's right-handed, which we need more right-handed bats in this lineup. So I will say fair with Gosselin, just because he's not just a second baseman. He can do more things for the Braves than Gosselin can.
He could be our starting third baseman next year when we trade Chris Johnson. Tammy?
This is a close one for me, too. I like that LaStella is a lefty, but I like that Gosselin can play more positions, and obviously recently he's been playing much better than Tommy. But I think Tommy is our better option for the long term. I think that he has the makings, of a cornerstone second baseman, and so I would take him long term.
Yeah, LaStella's had like 5 times more at-bats in the big leagues than Gosselin, so it's a little hard to compare. The league has caught up to LaStella a little bit, you would think, and LaStella hasn't made adjustments back yet. But, yeah, Gosselin's versatility and the fact that you've got Peraza coming up, who may be the second baseman of the future as well, I think I'll go with Gosselin. All right, guys, so it's September, which means it's really time, maybe past time, to formally reintroduce the postseason hope meter. We're on a scale of 1 to 10. We rate the chances we give the team for making the postseason, as we mentioned earlier, meaning getting past that, wild card play and really being in the postseason. So, Hammy, where are you on the postseason hope meter today?
So I forgot that little wrinkle that we have to make it past the first play-in game because I was at a 6. I'm at a 4.
It just plummeted.
It did a little bit. I feel like I said this last week. I think we have just as good a shot as Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, even San Francisco. We're all flawed in some ways and great in some ways. But beyond that, I don't like our chances.
Curtis, how about you?
Yeah, 4.
One correction, I did say that we needed more right-handed batters in our lineup, which obviously it's totally loaded with right-handed batters, so ignore that comment that I made. But I am at a 2. As much as I love our starting pitching, especially what we've seen over the past couple of days, save Tehran today, I think those guys can match up against some top-line starters. But I just think this offense is beyond up and down. I think it's bad and damaged, and so I don't think that we get out of a 1-game playoff. And I'm not at this point very certain that we make the playoffs. So I'll go 2.
Yeah, I mean, I want to reiterate that the pitching is as exciting as it's been all year. Save those first 2 weeks when everyone was throwing shutouts. But I mean, Wood and Minor rounding out Tehran and Santana. I mean, Santana's really back too. We haven't spoken much about Irvin, but my God, he's really settled down. But the offense is as scary as ever, Kurt. Just like you said, I will give it a 3. All right, guys, time for Shot in the Dark, our prediction for the coming week. But first, let's check back on last week, and a lot at stake here, guys. Hammy and Kurt tied at 1, me at 0.
Right.
Who will take August? So, Kurt, you predicted that Minor would go 8 innings and give up 2 or less runs. He went 7 and gave up 1 run. Pretty good. Hammy, trying to show off your math degree, predicted that the Braves would score 12 or more in the Mets series and 6 or less in the Marlins series. And the Braves scored 11 against the Mets and 6 against the Marlins. Pretty close.
So close.
And I predicted that we'd get swept by the Mets, but we took 2 of 3. So it's very close, but I'm declaring Hammy the winner.
What? Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. The level of difficulty was more on Hammy's, and he was only 1 run off.
This isn't gymnastics, dude.
It's mental gymnastics, Curtis.
That's right.
Right.
So that gives Ham the month of August with a 2-1 over Curtis. I was shut out. We move on to September. But first, let's check out our listener-submitted shots in the dark for the past week. So from Twitter, J Crosby 13 predicted that Goslin starts in left field and that BJ is benched at least twice. So I guess that Jay was picturing Goslin in left, Justin moving to right, and Heyward moving to center, which was crazy talk, Jay. I'm sorry. No starts in left for Goslin. BJ did only get 3 of 6 starts this week. And then from Twitter, Mark in Memphis, that the Braves win every game against left-handers and lose every game against right-handers. But in the Mets series, we beat Wheeler. In the Marlins series, we beat Kohler. So, so kind of close for both guys, but kind of not. All right. We're asking for listener shots in the dark, and we'll pick our favorite one, track it this week, and discuss it on the show next week. Submit them by Twitter or Facebook using the hashtag ABTSITD. So I know we're recording the show 1 day late. So when you listen to this on Tuesday morning, get those things in so that before first pitch on Tuesday. All right, so guys, your shots in the dark for the week. Curtis?
So 5 games left. I'm going to say that the Braves give up 10 runs and lose 4 games.
Okay, Hammy.
You're not going to believe, but I said that the Braves would get no hit this week.
Wow.
Does that count? Will you count that one?
No, you'll have to revise that. Hammy.
Then okay. Heyward will hit .333 with 3 runs and 3 RBI in the remaining 5 games.
Okay, and I will go that Justin gets 3 total hits this week. Today's game clearly not impacted.
Boo.
I know. I think that Justin's going to see the calendar and realize it's not August.
But I like your technique. You lose, you go a goose egg for a month. You try to have to mix things up and try to do the kiss of death. I know how you're playing it, Steve. I see it.
All right, guys, let's look at the rest of the week ahead. So obviously today's loss is in the books. We have 5 games remaining this week, 2 more at home with the Phillies, and then 3 in Miami against the Marlins. So let's look at the pitching matchups. We've got minor Kyle Kendrick, who we knocked around the last time we faced him, and his almost 5 ERA. Next up is Santana versus David Buchanan and his 4 ERA and the 3 runs we tagged him for last time.
Brave killer.
So we should totally, take these next 2 games with the Phillies, which means we'll split them. On to Miami, Harang Kosart, who just shut us out for 7 innings. Followed by Wood Eovaldi, who just held us to 1 run over 6 2/3. And then the final is Tehran versus Henderson Alvarez, who held us to 2 earned over 8 innings at the end of July. So, some not good news heading to Miami. So, Curtis, what do you think for this week? The prediction's a little easier. We know we're all...
Yeah, right. Well, when I said that we would lose 4 games, I'll go 1-4.
Yeah. Okay. Hammy?
I said 3-3, 2-1, and 1-2. So now for me, it's I guess 2-0 and 1-2. So 3-2 for the rest of the week.
All right, I'll go 2-4 for the week. We'll win 1 against the Phillies and 1 against the Marlins. We shall see. I mean, here's the playoff push, right? And my God, how much more is Freddie going to play BJ in this final critical month? It really does make watching the lineup get posted on Twitter interesting, if nothing else. All right, guys, that's the show. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as iTunes or Stitcher so that you don't miss any of our weekly shows. And as always, check us out at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com for past shows, to check out our blogs, and to post in our comments section. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at ATL Baseball Talk and to like us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and go Braves!
Thanks for listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves. To find new shows, to post in our forum, or to send a comment, please visit us at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com.
Had to admit the problem.